Work is a very difficult concept to define in some ways because we all have very different ideas about what work is, what work can be, and what work should be. If there's a universal definition of work, it's to do with spending energy purposefully in order to achieve some kind of goal. That's something that pretty much everybody would agree with. Where people would then disagree is what kind of activities might be considered work. So one man's work might be another man's pleasure. Somebody might play piano for a job, somebody might play piano for pleasure. So this reminds us that work is not necessarily a universal idea, and not universal in the sense that we tend to associate our work primarily with our jobs. We don't tend to associate it with many of the other activities that we use the word work to describe. So we work at our relationships, we work at our bodies, we work at our sports, we work at our pleasures, we work at our various skills that we acquire in our life, which bring us certain joys and certain amounts of happiness. But we often don't associate that with our jobs. We still have this kind of set of agricultural ideals about how hard we have to work. So we have this expectation that everybody must work, and we organize our societies and our economies on the assumption that somehow everybody has to be productive. Everybody needs to produce. Yet, remarkably, we live in societies where actually most of that production is done by very few people anyway. So we end up producing and inventing and creating. We spend a huge amount of energy trying to find things for people to do. So we end up having cultures which are based on production and consumption and endless repetitive growth and destruction. So instead of simply making use of what we have, we end up trying to find ways to continuously create and recreate. And we do that in order to keep the wheels of our economy going. And we do that in order to keep this idea that everybody somehow must be busy all the time. The lesson of the hunter-gatherers for us is very straightforward. It is recognize that we, as a species, are not beholden to constantly needing more. This idea that we have this eternal desire to have more than we have with ourselves is not borne out by history. Classical economics tells us that we are creatures with infinite desires, with infinite aspirations, that having enough today is just a cause for us to worry about having more tomorrow. The truth of the matter is, when we look at our evolutionary history, actually for most of human history, most people were content with what they had, that they didn't obsess continuously about having more. So it's not part of our human nature. And this, I think, is a key for us to start looking at how we can make and embrace a more sustainable future for ourselves and for our planet.